You can cover for the three of us tonight. Giant Apache girl to shy rancher Jack Thompson lived alone on his ranch on the edge of a small Arizona town. His ranch was not large, but it was enough for him to take care of a herd of cattle, a few horses, and a couple of barns filled with hay and equipment. Jack had grown up around ranches, learning the ways of the land and the animals from his father. He had always been quiet, keeping mostly to himself, and many in town called him shy. He preferred the company of animals to people, finding comfort in their simplicity. Every morning, Jack woke up before sunrise. The sky was often a mixture of purple and gold, and the cool desert air would fill his lungs as he stepped outside. He would walk past the wooden fences, checking for broken boards or stray cattle, and feed the horses in their stables. While he worked, he often thought about the past, about his father who had passed away several years ago, leaving Jack with the ranch and its responsibilities. It was a peaceful life in many ways, though it could be lonely. Jack did not mind the quiet. In fact, he preferred it. The town itself was small, with a handful of shops, a diner, and a post office. The people in the community were friendly but busy. Everyone had their own ranches, businesses, or jobs, and Jack was known as the quiet man who kept to himself. He would sometimes go to the diner for coffee and a breakfast burrito where people would nod and smile at him. He always returned the greeting with a soft nod or a brief smile. He never stayed long. Social gatherings were not something Jack enjoyed, but he did his best to maintain polite relations. One morning, while Jack was feeding his horses, he heard the sound of hooves approaching. Looking up, he saw a tall figure riding towards him. It was Lila Redfeather. She was a giant of a woman, not just in height, but in presence. She was Apache, with strong features, dark eyes, and long hair tied neatly in a braid that swung behind her as she rode. Her confidence was clear in every movement. Lila had grown up in the same town and had been around ranch life her whole life. Unlike Jack, she was bold and assertive, never shying away from challenges or people. Lila slowed her horse as she reached Jack. She had a warm smile on her face, but her eyes carried a spark of determination. "Morning, Jack," she said. Her voice was strong but friendly. Jack nodded and returned the greeting softly. He admired her confidence from a distance, but always felt a little intimidated by her energy. "How's everything here?" Lila asked, glancing at the horses and the cattle. Jack shrugged lightly. "Same as usual, nothing out of the ordinary." He avoided looking directly at her, feeling the familiar nervousness that always came with talking to someone so bold. Lila laughed softly, a sound that reminded Jack of wind through the trees. "You always say that, but I know you watch every little thing here. You care a lot about your ranch." Jack felt a faint blush rise to his cheeks. "I guess so," he muttered. He wasn't used to compliments, and even small praise made him uneasy. Lila nodded, her eyes scanning the horizon. "You do care, Jack." "That's why I know I can ask something of you." Her voice became a little more serious. Jack felt his heart skip a beat. Lila didn't often ask for help, and when she did, it usually meant something important. Jack straightened up, sensing that something unusual was about to happen. "What is it?" he asked cautiously. Lila hesitated for a moment, then smiled. "There's a problem tonight, and I might need your help." She paused, looking directly at him. "I know you like to keep to yourself, but I trust you. I think you can handle it." Jack felt both nervous and curious. He had known Lila for years, but had never worked closely with her on anything serious. He wondered what she meant and why she would come to him. Before he could ask, Lila continued. "I and a couple of others have been called out of town unexpectedly. There's work that needs to be done on the ranch tonight, and I need someone to cover for us. I thought of you." Jack's mind raced. Cover for them? He had never managed anyone else's responsibilities before. His own ranch was enough to keep him busy. The thought of taking on additional tasks made him feel both anxious and proud. Lila trusted him. That alone made him want to try.
Jack said quietly in depth of the indifferent.
"It's a lot to handle." Lila's smile softened. "Jack, I know it's a lot, but you've handled difficult situations before. You understand animals, fences, and storms better than anyone else I know. You can do this." Her words struck a chord in Jack. He had always been quiet and shy, often doubting his abilities. But Lila's confidence in him made him see himself differently. He began to imagine himself successfully taking care of everything just like he did every day for his own ranch. I'll try," Jack said finally. His voice was steady, though his hands trembled slightly. Lila's smile widened. "That's all I ask," she said. "I'll explain everything tonight, and I know you'll do well." Jack nodded, still unsure, but something inside him shifted.
He realized that helping others didn't have to be scary.
In fact, it could be an opportunity to grow. He watched Delilah ride away, her tall figure strong and confident against the morning sky. The sight left him both nervous and excited for what the night might bring. The rest of the day, Jack went about his normal work, but his mind kept returning to Lila's words. He checked the fences more carefully than usual, made sure the water troughs were full, and tended to the horses with extra care. He realized that he wanted to prove himself, not just to Lila, but to himself. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with oranges and pinks, Jack felt a strange mix of fear and determination. He had never been asked to do something so important outside of his normal routine, and yet he felt ready. The quiet rancher had been given a chance to step into something bigger than his usual life, and he felt a spark of courage that he hadn't felt in years. By the time the stars appeared in the desert sky, Jack was prepared. He had organized his work, checked everything twice, and thought through every possible challenge he might face during the night. Though he was shy and reserved, he felt a growing sense of pride. Lila's trust in him had awakened something he didn't know he had, the ability to step up when it really mattered. Jack sat on the porch of his small ranch house, looking out at the fields and animals. The quiet night surrounded him, filled with the sounds of crickets and the occasional distant howl of a coyote. He took a deep breath and whispered to himself, "I can do this." In that moment, the shy rancher realized that life could change in a single evening. A single request, a single vote of confidence could push him beyond his comfort zone and into a new chapter. And he was ready to face it, no matter how challenging it might be. The night was coming, and with it, the beginning of an experience that would test Jack in ways he had never imagined. But for the first time in a long time, he felt excitement instead of fear. He was ready to prove to himself that even a quiet, shy man could rise to the occasion when it mattered most. The day passed slowly, and the sun began its slow descent toward the horizon, painting the desert sky in deep oranges and reds. Jack Thompson worked diligently on his ranch, but he couldn't stop thinking about Lila Redfeather's request. Her words echoed in his mind. "I know you can handle it." He had never felt such responsibility before, and at first the thought made him nervous. But as the evening came closer, that nervousness slowly turned into a quiet determination. He knew he couldn't let Lila down. Jack checked his horses one more time, making sure they were calm and ready for the night. He walked among his cattle, counting them, making sure none had wandered close to the edges of the fences. A light wind blew through the ranch, rustling the dry grass and carrying the faint smell of sagebrush. The air had a cool bite now, a reminder that the desert nights could get chilly. Jack adjusted his jacket and went back to the barn to inspect the gates. Everything needed to be secure, and he wanted to be sure. As the sky darkened, Jack felt a growing sense of anticipation. He wasn't just working for himself tonight, he was working for someone else. The thought both excited and worried him. He thought of Lila, tall, strong, and confident. She had a way of making people believe in themselves, even when they doubted their abilities. Jack realized that she had seen something in him that he had never noticed in himself. The first sign of trouble came just as the last light faded. Jack noticed dark clouds rolling in from the west, unusual for this time of year. The sky quickly turned gray and heavy, and the wind picked up. He knew storms could be dangerous, especially in the open desert where lightning could strike and heavy rain could flood parts of the ranch. Jack's heart beat faster. He had never dealt with a storm of this kind while managing such a large herd. He moved quickly, closing all the barn doors and securing loose equipment. The horses were restless. their hooves clattering on the wooden floors of the stable. Jack spoke to them in calm, steady tones, trying to soothe their fears. "It's all right, you'll be fine," he said, patting the neck of a large brown mare. He could feel the tension in the air, a mixture of wind, rain, and the distant rumble of thunder. Suddenly, a sharp clap of thunder made Jack jump. He glanced at the dark horizon where lightning illuminated the clouds for brief moments. The storm was coming faster than he had expected. He took a deep breath and reminded himself of Lila's confidence in him. He had to step up. He had to handle this. Jack's first challenge came with the cattle. A few of the younger calves had wandered close to a fence that was already weak in some places. He knew that if the wind got stronger, the fence might collapse and the calves could escape. Jack ran toward the area, his boots crunching on the dry dirt. He held a rope in one hand, trying to corral the calves back to safety. The wind whipped at his jacket and hair, and the rain began to fall in light sheets, soaking him almost instantly. Despite the storm, Jack moved with focus and determination. He guided the calves back into the stronger fenced area, speaking to them gently. "Come on, little ones, stay safe," he murmured. One small calf hesitated, frozen with fear. Jack knelt down, extending a hand to encourage it, and slowly led it back to the others. By the time he returned to the barn, his clothes were soaked, his hands sore, but the calves were safe. Next, Jack turned to the horses. The wind was stronger now, shaking the stable doors. Some of the horses neighed nervously, sensing the storm. Jack moved between the stalls, making sure they were secure and calm. He checked the water troughs, filling them again after the wind had spilled some water on the ground. Every step was tiring, but Jack didn't stop. He knew that if he stayed calm, the animals would feel safe too. As the rain fell harder, Jack realized there was another problem. One of the outer fences had started to bend under the force of the wind. If it broke, a small section of the cattle could escape into the desert. Jack grabbed his tools and hurried outside, using the wind to shield himself as he worked. The rain soaked him completely, but he focused on reinforcing the fence. Nails, rope, and quick thinking helped him secure it just in time. He stepped back to admire his work, chest heaving from exertion, and allowed himself a moment of pride. Despite the challenges, Jack noticed that the storm brought a strange beauty. The rain made the desert smell fresh and earthy, and the lightning lit up the sky in brilliant flashes. He paused for a moment, letting himself watch the spectacle, and felt a quiet connection to the land he had always loved. He realized that the storm, though dangerous, was also a reminder of the power and beauty of nature. Then came the most unexpected challenge. A calf had wandered too close to a small creek that ran near the edge of the ranch. The rain had caused the water to rise quickly, and the calf was in danger of being swept away. Jack didn't hesitate. He ran toward the creek, slipping in the mud but keeping his focus on the calf. He grabbed the animal with both hands, holding it tight against him as the water rushed past. The calf struggled for a moment but calmed down when it felt Jack's steady grip. With great effort, Jack carried the calf back to a safe area behind the fence. His clothes were muddy, his arms sore, but the feeling of relief was overwhelming. He had saved one of the most vulnerable members of his herd, and that gave him a new sense of confidence. He realized that he could do more than he had thought. He could handle responsibility even in the worst conditions. The night grew darker, but Jack's work was not yet finished. He patrolled the ranch again, checking fences, gates, and animals. Every sound of the storm made him alert, but he moved with purpose. He thought of Lila, imagining her watching him from afar, trusting him to manage everything. Her faith gave him courage. He was not just a shy rancher anymore. He was someone capable of rising to the challenge when it mattered most. Hours passed, and the storm began to lose its strength. The rain slowed to a drizzle, and the wind became gentler. Jack stood in the middle of the ranch, looking around at the fields, fences, and animals. Everything was safe. The sense of accomplishment filled him with warmth despite his wet, tired body. He realized that tonight had been more than a test of his physical strength. It had been a test of his courage and determination. As he walked back to the barn, Jack felt a quiet pride. He had faced his fears, taken responsibility for something important, and succeeded. He thought again of Lila's words, her confidence in him, and realized that sometimes others can see the potential in us before we see it in ourselves. The shy rancher had proven to himself that he could step up when needed. Jack prepared a small meal in his ranch kitchen, his hands still shaking slightly from the adrenaline of the night. He sat by the window, watching the last drops of rain fall and listening to the soft sounds of the desert night. The world felt peaceful now, and Jack felt a deep sense of connection to his land, his animals, and the responsibilities he had taken on. Before going to bed, Jack made sure all the animals were settled and safe. He cleaned up his tools and walked through the ranch one final time. The experience had changed him. He realized that he was stronger, braver, and more capable than he had ever believed. The storm had tested him in every way, but he had passed. As Jack lay down that night, the events of the day replayed in his mind. He thought about the calves, the horses, the fences, and the storm. But most of all, he thought about Lila Redfeather. Her faith in him had been the spark he needed. He understood now that sometimes someone else's belief in you can give you the courage to believe in yourself. Jack drifted to sleep with a quiet smile on his face. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but he felt ready. He had faced the storm, protected his animals, and taken responsibility for something bigger than himself. The shy rancher had begun to discover a new side of himself, one that was brave, capable, and willing to step up when needed. And somewhere out there, Lila would return, trusting him once again, knowing that he had handled everything with care and courage. Jack Thompson, quiet and reserved, had taken the first step toward becoming a stronger, more confident man. The next morning, Jack woke up to a quiet ranch. The storm from the night before had passed, leaving behind wet fields and the fresh smell of rain on the desert land. The sun was just rising, casting a soft golden light across the fences and barns. Jack felt a strange mixture of exhaustion and satisfaction. He had faced a night of challenges and had come out stronger. But he also knew that today would bring even greater tests. He began his day early, as always, checking the fences and animals. The calves were huddled together, wet but safe. The horses were calm, grazing slowly in their paddocks. Everything seemed peaceful, but Jack knew that the storm had left hidden problems. Some fences were weak, and the ground was slippery. He moved carefully, making sure that the animals were not in danger. As he worked, Jack thought about Lila Redfeather. She had always been a strong presence in the town, and he admired her courage and skill. She had asked him to cover for her and the others, and he had done it. But now he realized that her trust came with more than just responsibility. It also carried a lesson. One about courage, leadership, and the ability to act under pressure. Around mid-morning, Jack heard the sound of hooves approaching. He looked up and saw Lila riding toward him, her tall figure cutting through the bright morning light. Behind her were two other ranchers, friends of hers, who had been delayed by the storm. Lila's expression was serious but calm, and Jack felt a surge of pride knowing that she was coming back to find everything in order. "Good morning, Jack," Lila called, her voice carrying over the fields. "How did everything go last night?" Jack straightened, a little nervous under her gaze. "It was tough," he admitted, "but the animals are safe and the fence is held. I managed to get through it." Lila smiled, a warm expression that seemed to light up the area around her.
"I knew you could do it," she said. "You were brave and careful."
"That's exactly what I expected from you." Her words filled Jack with a quiet pride. For years he had lived a life of solitude, unsure of his own strength. But now, hearing Lila's confidence in him, he realized that he could handle challenges he had never imagined. The three of them dismounted and began walking around the ranch, inspecting the work Jack had done. The other two ranchers nodded in approval. "You really held the place together," one of them said. "That storm could have caused a lot of damage, but you kept everything under control." Jack felt a warm glow of satisfaction. He had proven something to himself, something that had always seemed impossible. He had faced fear, responsibility, and pressure, and he had succeeded. But there was still work to be done. Lila looked at him with a serious expression. "There's more I need to show you," she said. Last night was just the beginning. Today you'll face a different kind of challenge. Jack felt a flutter of nerves. He had already faced a dangerous storm, yet Lila seemed to have more in store for him. He followed her as she led the group toward the back of the ranch, where a steep hill overlooked a section of the property. "There's a new herd coming in today," Lila explained. "They need to be guided safely into the pens." "It's not easy, especially for someone who hasn't done it before." Jack nodded. He had moved animals before, but never a full herd of strangers. He felt a mix of fear and excitement. He trusted Lila, and he wanted to prove that he was capable of handling this too. As the herd arrived, Jack observed from a distance. Dozens of cows, calves, and a few older bulls made their way down the dusty road, moving slowly but unpredictably. The animals were nervous, and Jack could see their uncertainty in the way they shifted their weight and moved their heads. Lila gave him instructions. "Stay calm, move slowly, and guide them with your voice and your hands. Don't rush. They'll follow if they trust you." Jack took a deep breath. He remembered the storm from last night. The fear, the adrenaline, the responsibility. He realized that this was a different kind of challenge, one that required patience, focus, and understanding. He approached the herd carefully, his hands slightly trembling. He spoke in a soft, steady voice, calling to the animals and guiding them toward the pens. Some calves hesitated, and Jack knelt down to coax them forward. He used the skills he had learned over the years, combining gentle words, firm gestures, and quiet confidence. Slowly, the herd began to move in the direction he wanted. Jack kept his eyes on every animal, watching for signs of panic or straying. He adjusted his position as needed, keeping a balance between authority and calm reassurance. It was exhausting work, both physically and mentally, but Jack felt a deep satisfaction with every successful step. One of the larger bulls became restless, pawing at the ground and snorting loudly. Jack's heart raced. He knew that one wrong move could send the entire herd into chaos. He remembered Lila's instructions. Stay calm, be confident, and guide them. He slowly moved closer, speaking in a firm but gentle tone, and used a rope to direct the bull away from the others. The animal calmed down, and Jack breathed a sigh of relief. Hours passed as Jack guided the herd through the pens. The sun climbed higher in the sky, and the heat began to press down on him. Sweat ran down his face, and his muscles ached from constant movement, but he refused to stop. He could feel the trust the animals were giving him, and he did not want to disappoint them. Or Lila. By mid-afternoon, the herd was safely secured in the pens. Jack stood back, exhausted but proud. Lila and the other ranchers approached, their faces showing admiration. "You did it," Lila said simply. "You stayed calm, focused, and patient." "That's not easy, especially for someone new to this kind of work." Jack smiled weakly, feeling a mix of relief and pride. For the first time, he truly believed in his own abilities. The quiet rancher who had always stayed in the background had faced challenges and succeeded. He had proven something to himself that no one else could take away. The group took a short break, sitting in the shade of a large mesquite tree. Jack drank water and wiped the sweat from his face. He felt tired, but also energized in a strange way. The satisfaction of accomplishment coursed through him, stronger than any exhaustion. Lila looked at him thoughtfully. "You know, Jack," she said, "most people never get a chance to see what they are truly capable of. You've seen it today. You've faced fear, responsibility, and challenge, and you've risen to them." Jack nodded, feeling a lump in his throat. He had always doubted himself, always assumed he was too quiet, too shy, too ordinary to do anything remarkable. But now he knew differently. He could rise to challenges, even when they seemed impossible. The afternoon continued with more work. Jack helped repair fences that had been damaged in the storm, organized supplies in the barn, and checked on the animals once more. Each task reminded him that he was capable, and each success built his confidence. By late afternoon, the ranch was in perfect order. The animals were safe, the fences were secure, and the new herd was calm in the pens. Jack felt a deep sense of satisfaction as he walked through the ranch one last time. He had faced every challenge thrown at him and had come out stronger, braver, and more confident. Lila approached him, smiling. "You've done more than I expected," she said. "I knew you could handle last night, but today you've shown real skill, courage, and patience. I'm proud of you." Jack felt warmth spread through him. He had never received such praise before, and it meant more than he could put into words. He realized that the shy rancher he had once been was still there, but he was no longer the same man. He had grown, learned, and discovered strength he didn't know he had. As the sun began to set, Jack watched the sky turn shades of pink and gold. The ranch was quiet now, peaceful and calm. He knew that challenges would come again, but he also knew that he was ready. He could face them, because he had faced the impossible and succeeded. That evening, Jack sat on the porch, looking out over his land. He thought about the storm, the herd, and the trust Lila had shown in him. He understood something important now. Courage was not about being fearless. It was about facing fear, stepping forward, and doing what needed to be done. Jack felt a quiet pride in himself that he had never felt before. He had proven to himself that he could rise to any challenge, that he could be brave, responsible, and capable, and he knew that this was just the beginning. Somewhere in the distance, Lila's voice echoed from the other side of the ranch. She was calling to the others, and Jack smiled. The quiet rancher had grown into someone stronger, ready for whatever challenges came next, and he was eager to face them. The morning after guiding the new herd into the pens, Jack Thompson woke to a quiet ranch once more. The sky was painted in soft shades of pink and orange as the sun slowly rose over the horizon. The air was fresh and cool, carrying the scent of wet earth from the previous storm. Jack stretched, feeling the soreness in his muscles from the day before. His arms ached from lifting, his back ached from bending, and his legs were stiff from hours of running after animals. Yet despite the physical discomfort, he felt a deep sense of accomplishment. He walked outside, boots crunching on the damp soil, to check on the ranch. The calves were huddled together, their coats still slightly damp from the morning dew, while the horses grazed calmly in their paddocks. Everything was in order, a sign of Jack's careful attention the night before and throughout the day. He felt pride swelling in his chest, but also a quiet curiosity about what would come next. As he walked toward the barn to start his morning chores, he heard the sound of hooves approaching. Lila Redfeather appeared again, riding confidently across the field, accompanied by the two ranchers who had returned after the storm. Her presence was commanding, yet welcoming. Jack had grown used to Lila's strength and energy, and seeing her now brought him both comfort and anticipation. "Morning, Jack!" she called, her voice carrying across the ranch. "I wanted to see how everything settled overnight." Jack straightened up, brushing some mud from his jacket. "Good morning, Lila. Everything is fine. The animals are safe, and the fences held well." Lila smiled warmly. "I knew you could handle it," she said, "but I wanted to see it for myself." Her eyes scanned the ranch, taking in the careful order and calmness of the animals. "You've done more than just manage the ranch last night and today. You've shown patience, skill, and courage. That's not something every rancher can do, especially on their own." Jack felt a quiet satisfaction. Lila's praise was rare, and it meant more than words could express. He realized that her trust in him had been the spark that allowed him to rise to the challenge. Without her confidence, he might have doubted himself and faltered. Now he understood that sometimes someone else's belief in you can push you to achieve more than you ever thought possible. The three of them dismounted and began walking through the ranch, inspecting the work Jack had completed. They examined the fences, the barns, and the pens. The other two ranchers nodded in approval, impressed by how organized and secure everything was. "You really held the place together," one of them said. "That storm could have caused chaos, but you managed it flawlessly." Jack nodded quietly, feeling a warm sense of pride. He had never thought of himself as particularly skilled or brave, yet here he was, recognized by others for his abilities. It was a new experience, one that he wanted to savor and remember. Lila paused near the pens, her expression serious. "Jack, there's something I want you to understand," she said. "Last night and today weren't just about handling a storm or guiding a herd. They were about learning how to trust yourself and your abilities. Most people never get a chance to see what they are truly capable of. You've seen it now, and you've risen to the challenge." Jack looked at her, absorbing her words. He thought about the storm, the calves near the creek, the restless bulls, and the herd that had needed his guidance. Each challenge had tested him in a different way, pushing him beyond what he thought was possible. And he had succeeded. I think I understand," Jack said finally. "I've realized that I can do more than I thought. I can face challenges even when I'm afraid."
Lila nodded.
"Exactly," she said. "Fear is natural. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. You acted, Jack, and that's why you succeeded." The other two ranchers smiled at him, clearly impressed. "You've done more than just manage the ranch," one said. "You've proven yourself as someone reliable, capable, and strong. People will respect that." Jack felt a quiet warmth in his chest. He had always been shy, preferring to work alone and avoid attention. But now he understood that his abilities mattered, and that he could earn respect through action and courage, not just words. The rest of the morning passed in a flurry of activity. Jack helped Lila and the others repair any remaining damage from the storm. They mended fences that had weakened, reinforced gates, and organized supplies in the barn. Jack's hands were rough and tired, but he moved with focus and determination, completing each task with care. During a brief break, Lila approached him. "Jack, this experience doesn't just make you stronger as a rancher," she said. "It makes you stronger as a person. You've faced fear, responsibility, and pressure, and you've handled it. That's something to carry with you for the rest of your life." Jack nodded thoughtfully. He realized that she was right. The challenges he had faced had tested him in ways beyond physical strength or skill. They had tested his patience, courage, and confidence. And he had grown because of it. By midday, the ranch was in perfect order. The animals were calm, the fences secure, and the barns organized. Jack stood in the middle of the ranch looking around with a sense of quiet pride. He had faced every challenge thrown at him over the past 2 days and had succeeded. He felt stronger, braver, and more capable than ever before. Lila gathered the group together. "I want you to know something," she said, her voice warm. "Not everyone gets a chance to see what they are truly capable of. You've seen it now, and you've proven it. You should be proud, Jack." Jack felt a lump in his throat. Pride and gratitude filled him. For the first time, he truly felt recognized, not just for his work, but for his courage, patience, and determination. He realized that he had changed. The shy, quiet rancher who had lived a solitary life was no longer the same man. The afternoon passed quietly, with the group finishing the remaining tasks and preparing the ranch for the evening. Jack moved efficiently, knowing that everything was secure. He felt a sense of calm and confidence that he had never experienced before. The lessons of the past 2 days had stayed with him, shaping his thoughts and actions. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in warm shades of orange and pink, Jack walked through the ranch one last time. The fields were quiet, the animals peaceful, and the fences secure. He felt a deep connection to his land, his animals, and the responsibilities he had taken on. Lila approached him one final time. "Jack, you've done more than I could have asked," she said. "You've proven yourself capable, patient, and brave. I'm proud of you." Jack smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment and gratitude. He had faced challenges that had tested him in every way, and he had succeeded. He realized that life sometimes gave opportunities to grow in unexpected ways, and that taking those opportunities could change a person forever. As the evening settled over the ranch, Jack sat on the porch, looking out at the fields and the animals. He thought about the storm, the herd, and the challenges he had faced, but most of all, he thought about Lila Redfeather. Her faith in him had sparked a transformation, showing him what he was capable of. He realized that courage was not about being fearless. It was about acting despite fear, stepping up when needed, and believing in yourself. And tonight, Jack Thompson knew that he had discovered a new side of himself, stronger, braver, and more confident than ever before. The ranch was quiet now, bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun. Jack felt a sense of peace and accomplishment. He had faced every challenge, proved his abilities, and earned the respect of those around him. The shy rancher had begun to transform into a man who could face fear, responsibility, and the unknown with courage and determination. As darkness fell, Jack prepared for the night. He checked the animals one last time, ensuring they were calm and safe. He walked through the fields, touching the fences and patting the horses, feeling a deep connection to the land and the creatures he cared for. Sitting on the porch, Jack reflected on the events of the past 2 days. He had faced storms, guided herds, repaired fences, and managed responsibilities beyond anything he had ever imagined. Through it all, he had discovered a strength within himself that he had never known existed. And as the stars appeared in the night sky, Jack Thompson smiled quietly. He had faced fear, responsibility, and challenge, and he had grown stronger because of it. The shy rancher had learned that courage, patience, and determination could transform a person, and he was ready for whatever the future might bring. The morning after the long 2 days of challenges, Jack Thompson woke up to a calm and quiet ranch. The sun was just beginning to rise, spilling soft golden light across the fields, barns, and pens. The animals were already stirring, grazing, and moving about in their paddocks. Jack stretched, feeling the familiar ache in his muscles from the past days, but it was a good kind of ache. A reminder of the hard work and effort he had put into protecting his ranch and the animals he loved. Jack walked outside, boots crunching on the dry soil, and took a deep breath of the fresh desert air. The storm had long passed, and the fields were filled with a soft scent of wet earth and sage. For the first time in a long while, he felt completely at peace. He looked over the land he had grown up with, and a quiet pride filled his chest. He had faced storms, guided herds, and repaired fences, and through it all he had discovered a new strength within himself. The day ahead promised work, as it always did on a ranch. But Jack felt different now. He was no longer just the shy, quiet man who kept to himself. He was someone who had stepped up when it mattered most, someone who could face challenges and succeed. The memory of Lila Redfeather's words echoed in his mind. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. Jack realized now that she had been right. As he began his morning chores, he noticed Lila riding toward him across the field, her tall figure strong and confident against the sunrise. Behind her, the other 2 ranchers followed, carrying supplies and checking their own herds. Lila waved and called out, "Good morning, Jack. Ready for another day?" Jack smiled, nodding.
Good morning, Lila.
Yes, I'm ready. Lila dismounted and walked over, brushing the dust from her clothes.
"I wanted to check in on you," she said, her voice kind but firm. "You've done so much these past days, and I hope you realize how far you've come. Not just as a rancher, but as a person." Jack felt a warmth spread through him. He had always doubted himself, unsure of his abilities, and afraid of failing. But now he could see that he had grown. He had faced fear, taken responsibility, and succeeded. And that had changed him. "I never thought I could handle so much, but your trust, it made a difference. It gave me courage." Lila smiled, her eyes warm. "That's what people do for each other, Jack. We believe in others, and sometimes that belief is all they need to see their own strength. You've proven that you are capable, patient, and brave. I'm proud of you." The 2 of them walked together across the ranch, checking fences and animals. Lila offered advice and guidance, but this time Jack followed with confidence, making decisions and taking action without hesitation. The shy, quiet man who had once been uncertain of himself now moved with purpose, aware of his own abilities and ready for whatever challenges might come next. As the day went on, neighbors and fellow ranchers began to arrive at the ranch. Word had spread about Jack's efforts during the storm and the herd guidance. People came to thank him, to offer help, and to share their admiration. Jack felt a mixture of surprise and pride. He had never sought recognition, but it felt good to know that his work had made a difference. Lila introduced him to a few of the neighbors.
"This is Jack Thompson," she said proudly.
He managed everything during the storm and guided the new herd safely.
He showed courage, patience, and skill beyond what most could do. The neighbors nodded and shook his hand.
We heard about what you did, one said. You really saved a lot of trouble.
We're impressed. Jack smiled politely, feeling a little shy under the attention, but he also felt a growing sense of confidence. For the first time, he realized that he could handle not only the physical demands of ranch life, but also the respect and recognition that came with responsibility. After the visitors left, Lila and Jack worked together to prepare the ranch for the next few days. They repaired minor damages, reinforced fences, and ensured that all animals had enough food and water. Jack moved with quiet efficiency, knowing that his work was making a real difference. He felt a deep satisfaction in the knowledge that he had grown stronger, braver, and more capable. As the afternoon wore on, Lila paused to look at him.
Jack, I think you've learned something important these past days, she said. It's not just about taking care of the ranch or the animals. It's about trusting yourself, facing challenges, and believing in your own strength. You've done that, and it shows.
Jack nodded thoughtfully. He thought about the storm, the calves near the creek, the herd that had needed guidance, and the long hours of work.
Every challenge had tested him, and every success had strengthened him. He realized that courage was not about being fearless. It was about acting despite fear, stepping up when needed, and trusting oneself.
The sun began to set, casting a warm, golden glow across the ranch. Jack stood on the porch, looking out at the fields, fences, and animals. The day had been long and tiring, but it had also been rewarding. He felt a sense of peace and fulfillment that he had never known before. Lila approached him again, her presence calm and confident.
Jack, you've come a long way in just a few days, she said.
You've faced fear, responsibility, and challenge, and you've grown stronger because of it. I hope you remember this feeling, because it will carry you through anything. Jack smiled quietly. He had already learned so much about himself, and he knew that the lessons of these past days would stay with him for the rest of his life. He felt gratitude for Lila's trust, guidance, and encouragement. Without her, he might never have realized his own strength. As the evening settled over the ranch, Jack finished his last chores and sat on the porch, watching the stars appear in the night sky. The desert was quiet, filled with the soft sounds of crickets, distant owls, and the gentle rustle of the wind through the trees. He felt a deep connection to the land, the animals, and the responsibilities he had taken on. Jack thought back to the storm, the challenges, and the moments of fear and doubt. He realized that every difficulty had been an opportunity for growth. He had discovered patience, courage, skill, and confidence. He had learned to trust himself and to rise to challenges even when they seemed impossible.
Lila joined him on the porch, sitting quietly beside him. You know, Jack, she said softly, most people never get a chance to see what they are truly capable of.
You've seen it now, and you've proven it. That's something to be proud of. Jack nodded, feeling a quiet smile spread across his face. He had always been shy and reserved, but he no longer felt limited by those qualities. He knew now that he could rise to challenges, act with courage, and handle responsibility. He had grown stronger, not just as a rancher, but as a person. The night grew darker, and the stars shone brightly above. Jack felt a deep sense of peace and fulfillment. He had faced fear, taken responsibility, and succeeded. He had earned the respect of his neighbors, the trust of Lila, and most importantly, his own self-respect. As he looked out over the ranch, Jack realized that this experience had changed him forever. He had discovered a strength within himself that he had never known existed. He had faced challenges that tested him in every way, and he had come out stronger, braver, and more confident. For the first time in his life, Jack Thompson felt truly capable. He had proven to himself that he could handle responsibility, act with courage, and rise to challenges. And he knew that whatever came next, he would be ready. Lila turned to him with a small smile.
You've done well, Jack.
Really well, she said. I'm proud of you. Jack felt warmth and gratitude fill his heart.
Thank you, Lila, he said quietly, for everything.
The two of them sat on the porch in comfortable silence, watching the stars twinkle above the desert. Jack felt a sense of accomplishment and transformation that he had never experienced before. He knew that life would continue to bring challenges, but he also knew that he had the courage, patience, and skill to face them. The shy rancher had grown into a man who could trust himself, act with confidence, and rise to any challenge. And as he sat there, side by side with Leela, he felt a quiet happiness and fulfillment. He had discovered not only his own strength, but also the power of trust, encouragement, and belief. For Jack Thompson, the events of the past days had marked the beginning of a new chapter. He was no longer just the quiet, reserved man who kept to himself. He was someone who had faced fear, responsibility, and challenge, and had grown stronger, braver, and more confident because of it. And as the night embraced the desert, Jack quietly whispered to himself, a small smile on his lips, "I can do this. I really can."